There it goes. Second time's a charm.
There we go. Hey, hey.
Well, good. Well, now afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for the Threat Thursday Live. Today we are talking about something that is rather fun, but also rather annoying at times. A lot of you, especially if you work on the red side, you know there's this whole mysterious piece of all of our campaigns that require you to move around called lateral movement. Got to get between hosts, and a lot of times, especially nowadays, with every way networks are set up, segmentation, all kinds of crazy new security tooling in place, it can be hard. So we've came up with a few little ways that you could try to utilize lateral movement within the Scythe platform. So we figured we'd show some of that off today, talk about some of our little tips and tricks, and hopefully you guys get something out of this, especially if you're one of our users. So let's show them what we're talking about today, Tyler.
For sure. So we'll be, like Trey said, be covering some lateral movement techniques, utilizing some living off the land techniques, I guess. So there are some prereqs to using this. So for all of the lateral movement techniques we're going to show via a network share. We're going to show via utilizing the invoke command to do a wget cradle, and utilize a new binary I just learned about yesterday while I was prepping for this, WinRS, which is Windows Remote Services. So we'll be using all three of those to conduct our lateral movement. But some prereqs for that is all of these rely on Windows or on PowerShell remote usage in some form. So we need to make sure that all of our machines have PS remoting enabled. This, I think, is pretty common. It was pretty common in most of the environments that we would be threat hunting on, that administrators utilize PS remoting a lot. So it's, I think, pretty common nowadays that PS remoting is going to be available on most of your machines. Curious what it looks like in your guys' environment, but that is a prereq that we have. Outside of that, we can jump into it. So just some more, not quite prereqs, but some things we did behind the scenes. We have the Victim 1 campaign that I've already launched and is running. Currently, it's not doing anything. It just loads the loaders on there. We're going to try this one live and see how that goes, right? So we have the first campaign on there that's already running on this machine, and then we have our remote campaign implant that I've downloaded onto this machine. So that's already staged. I'm not going to go over how to download the campaigns. We've been over that a few different times. But so we'll go on to the first campaign that we have here, onto the Victim 1 box. And the first thing that we're going to do is just see what machines are enabled and active, and what machines we might be able to communicate with. So to do that, we're going to run this one-liner that's going to run PowerShell, get your AD computers that are all enabled. So that'll give it a list, and then for each one of those items, we're going to go through this for each loop where we're going to test if WS-Man is enabled on those machines. So to test WS-Man, what that will do is reach out to the endpoints and see if they have PS remoting enabled, and if you're able to reach them. So in here, we have a list. This is the machine that we're on. PS remoting is enabled. Then we have some of our other victim machines we have in our lab further down here. So for that, we'll take this EC2 SRG IV5B is going to be our target machine that we're going to try to laterally move to. So we know that now. We know that PS remoting is enabled. We know that there's a few machines that we're able to have contact with. So that's great. Go on to the next phase, which is to create a shared drive. This might not be necessary for you guys. If you already have shared drives in your environment, you can just piggyback off of one of those. But if not, we'll go ahead and create a shared drive. So up first, we'll use upshell just to see if this path exists. This is going to be the folder where our shared drive is going to exist. So just C share. So we'll run that. That'll create it if it is not already created. And then next up, we're going to run this net share command. So this is going to name our share that we just created, this folder here. It's going to name it run share, and it's going to grant full permissions to everyone. So it should be globally accessible for any user to connect to. We have that. So we see that our run share drive has been created and shared successfully. again, you don't need to do this if you are going to piggyback off of an already created share drive in your environment, which is probably a better way to do it. So that way you're not creating extra artifacts and things like that. But if not, this is how you would create a share drive via site. So then up next, we're going to take our implant here, implant.exe, which again is this remote campaign. I just already downloaded it to the endpoint. So I'm going to copy it over from where it exists now inside of that campaigns directory over to our share drive. Give that a second, copy over, and then I'm going to run just a quick ls command or a directory listing just to make sure that that file does exist there. So we're going to get child item on C share. And we see, all right, it is there. Perfect. So then up next, excuse me, we're going to, now this is quite a doozy, this next one, but we're going to copy our campaign from the machine that we're on, from that share, that C/share that we have. We're going to copy it over to our victim or our remote host over here, that SRG that we identified in that first step by running the test WS man loop. So up first, how this works for people who might not be familiar with PowerShell, we're going to run this invoke command. The invoke command will allow you to execute commands on remote hosts. It actually will allow you to execute commands on your own host, but for this instance, we're going to use it over a remote host. So up first, we're going to run the netuse command here. That's all of that part. So what that's going to do is it will map the share drive that we created. It will map it with this Z colon. And then even though the share drive is allowed for everyone to have full access as a part of some built-in security that Microsoft has, you still have to authenticate somehow to that share drive to have it mounted. There are some ways around this. There are some registry values that you can change to allow for anonymous access or anonymous mounting onto the share drive. I think that would probably set off more alarms than you guys just utilizing the credentials you already have or credentials that you've already dumped. But if you don't have creds like this, or you don't have the ability to make a valid user inside of your campaign, you could just modify the registry values to allow for anonymous access. But either way, you need to mount that share drive, which we'll do here. And then up next, we're going to just run a child item on Z just to make sure that it did mount correctly. And then we'll copy the implant from that Z colon, which is that share drive. We're going to copy it out of the share drive onto the endpoint itself. We're going to put it in public, and then we'll just do another check on public to make sure that it copied over successfully. So we'll run that, see what happens.
And like you were saying, this is a very noisy route to go. We're not exactly trying to be stealthy either, though. We've kind of gotten in at this point in most of our campaigns. We might have already set persistence in some other form or fashion. We're just trying to find a good way to move some files around.
Yep.
The cool part about this is there's not a lot more requirements as you would expect to see from any other traditional C2 platform in the way you're performing these actions. This is all stuff you could easily automate and include as a part of any of our campaigns.
Yeah, for sure. And you do cut out a lot of the noise if you're going to use a share drive that already exists, right? Because if a share drive already exists, it's probably going to have the same mounting or the same drive letter. Like if you have an H drive or something like that, your home directory. But anyway, most organizations, enterprise organizations, will have mapped share drives that will map and connect when your computer turns on. So if you already have that, you can just piggyback off of that. There's no need for you to create it and share it and then map the remote host to it. You could just copy it over and run it. So with that being said, we can see that our implant here, that the command completed successfully. Here is a directory listing of our map share drive. So we know that that works. We see the host it's on, and then we see that it copied over to public. Again, see the host that it's on. So then from here, we just need to execute it. So I'll show real quick over here, I'll even refresh that the remote campaign is not on yet. We haven't executed it yet, right? So in here, it's just going to reach out again and then run this cmd/c start to then start the implant. The reason why it's cmd/c start instead of like maybe PowerShell start process or ampersand or something like that is when I was testing yesterday, it would start the process initially, and then the way that the info command having like two nested PowerShells inside of it, it would start it and then kill the implant immediately. So utilizing the start command does not do that and will actually allow it to run in the background. So that's why we're switching it up a little bit here. Probably just need a little more testing for the for PowerShell to get that to work right. But either way, should still get the same. So we see that that command is going off. You can switch over to our second view, and we see that we did get a check-in on that remote host. So we can see that JFO CHEQ was our initial vector, and then we could see that the remote host, the host names are different, and that we have execution on a different host over here.
And boom, we've moved laterally.
Yep. Boom. Now you have another campaign. This campaign doesn't really do anything. It's just to push it over there to see it execute. And then once it executes, put that on there. Oh, I made a spelling mistake with my, who am I? Whatever it is, you know, you have your secondary campaign. You don't even have to have it do anything on the other one, but you have now achieved lateral movement successfully inside of the platform. This one did take, like we saw, quite a few steps to kind of get over to it. A lot of those, again, can be relieved by already having a mounted drive or something like that. But we wanted to show you worst case scenario. You don't have anything already mounted. You don't have anything already on there. Even maybe you don't know anything about your environment. Which is why we ran that AD computers query and that test WS man. So that's the first way. Oh, yeah, Trey.
I was gonna say, so for this next way, they should be able to kind of take the share out of the middleman, right? Just gonna get that out of there and
yes.
be a
So
little
the
more
benefit of the next way, that sounds funny. The benefit of the next way, which is going to just utilize that invoke command and a curl statement, right? So there's no need for shared drives. All you need to be able to do, again, is to make sure that you have that WS man, or excuse me, that you have PS remoting enabled, which we already tested via that test WS man, so I'm not going to do it again. I will actually put the command for that in the chat though, so everybody can see it, because I do like that. It's a great way to just go through and see all the machines that you would have access to. But anyway, so with that, we'll use the wget cradle now. So for that, we've already kind of gone out there and tested and seen what machines we would be able to connect to. So in this one, we're just going to change up what's inside of the script block to, instead of utilizing the share and copying all that over, we're going to just run a wget cradle. I'm going to pull down this direct download link, which we talked about before. It's just another way to download a campaign via Scythe. And then we'll output that again into public. We'll call this one implant one, and then we'll do a get child item on public just to make sure that it's there. We'll let that run second, and we see implant and implant one are on there. Let's duplicate this. So we still see that just the one remote campaign is there, which makes sense because we've only executed one so far. Let's go into the next one, and then we'll execute this the same way, just with that CMD //C to start it as that background process. Have that kicked off, and then we'll give it a second and see if we get another check-in. Take just about a second, and then we see we have another check-in. So we see boom, two, another viable way that you could utilizing the invoke command, PowerShell remoting, and wget, download and execute a campaign on the distant end. You could also, you don't need to have the download and the execution be two different procedures. You could have that be the same procedure if you want. I like it broken down into the two just because it makes it a little easier to see, but for like a more practical use, you could probably do it all in one maybe. And then that will take us to the last way that we're going to go over it. there are plenty more ways to perform lateral movement, but we're just going to cover kind of these three. I don't want to say basic ones, but these three living off the land ones utilizing PowerShell remoting for today. So
Yeah,
we're going to do the
yeah,
last one. Oh,
that's
yes, sir.
actually a really good point. This is just utilizing native what's in the environment. We're not introducing any new tools. We're not bringing in Python scripts, anything crazy like that. It's just utilizing PowerShell, which is already there, and moving some stuff around.
Yeah, we're not even really using any crazy modules or anything like that. We're just using run, which is the same as running PowerShell, or CMD, the same thing as having a terminal on the endpoint. So we're not doing anything crazy here, right? We'll go over to the last way now, which is utilizing WinRS, which is Windows Remote Services. This was something that is new to me. Like I said, I just found out about it yesterday as I was prepping for this demo. But from what I understand, it essentially works the same way, where it is essentially running PowerShell remoting under the hood, and that's how it's reaching out to these other endpoints. So this one looks a little bit different, right, than the other ones we've seen. So the bane of my existence is escaping characters. It's like my least favorite thing. It always gives me trouble trying to get your quotes right, escape, ampersands and things like that. So when I was doing it yesterday, I could not get it to escape properly. So instead, I thought, well, let's just base 64 encode the string, and then we'll just do it that way. Which base 64 encoding is a very typical thing we see from a lot of adversaries, a lot of CTI, a lot of administrators. It's very common to see in your network, and will maybe give you a little bit of obscurity if places aren't translating this kind of on the fly.
Well, the
I'll
nice thing
show.
about using base 64 there is most administrative scripts use it in some form of fashion. Like, I can't tell
Yes,
how many times we've seen that and we think, ooh, that's bad. No, it's just John doing his normal thing. He just decided
100%.
to encode because he hates escaping characters too.
Yep, 100%. I've seen it running in a bunch of admin scripts, and you're immediately like, oh, we caught the bad guy, pack it in, we got him, and it's like, no, this is a totally normal thing to have happen. So yeah, totally viable way to do it is just to base 64 encode it. And then I just used CyberChef here to decode it just so you guys can see what it's doing. But it's, again, just running that wget statement. The invoke web request is just PowerShell's way of saying wget. So we're still just going to pull down that same link. We're going to call it implant2, just for us to keep track of which one is which, right? So in here, we're going to run PowerShell WinRS, which again is Windows Remote Services. -R, which I'm not sure what the -R stands for. Remote, maybe, probably. Remote host over here. And then we're going to run inside of the quotes is what you want it to run, right? So we want to run PowerShell with this encoded command, which is really that wget statement. Give that a second to go through. This one gives you lots of output, which is very interesting. I said I need to do a little more research on WinRS, but gives you tons of output. You can see that it has transferred over bytes complete 378,880, which is the correct number. If you don't believe it, you can run, again, to the get child item or something like that in the public directory and verify that it's there. But I'm just going to go ahead and start it, and we'll see. So start. I don't call cmd/c before this because it is unnecessary with WinRS. And we'll download it to public, call it implant2, or it's already called implant2. We're going to just start it and see if we get a check-in.
And there
And
were three.
then we have 3. There it is, just like that. Just 3 kind of, I mean, once you have the prereqs stood up, 3 pretty straightforward ways to utilize the tools that Windows already gives you to just perform lateral movement across your environment.
And again, these aren't like, it's nothing crazy. It's not high speed. We're not using fancy tools to move files around or anything like that. We're living off the land here. And where this can get really juicy is you start chaining this with other potential behaviors. We talked about PowerShell web access a while back. All of this stuff is still native and accessible from there. So now you get a decent foothold on a server with PSWA. You've got a web console that allows you to remote around in the environment and move shells and do whatever you need to do. So it can very quickly get out of hand from a defensive perspective by just having a few of these things active and potentially unlogged.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And then real quick, I just saw that Josh had a question: is double or triple base 64 encoding a thing that threat actors use? I have read something about it, but have never seen it. I haven't seen like double or triple base 64 encoding. I've seen base 64 encoded with like a ROT3 and then maybe another kind of encoding algorithm on top of it. So you do see that sometimes, but there we used to have it was a Splunk action that if it saw base 64 encoded commands, it would automatically send it to some Splunk app. I don't remember what it's called. It would send it to that app, decode it, and then put a new field in there with it all the way decoded inside of it. But you could probably, I'm sure that you could make a Python script or something to auto detect what the encoding is, or maybe even throw it inside of CyberChef and click the magic button if you're not sure, or just kind of go through and try to decode it via CyberChef. But I've never seen it like triple base 64 encoded, but I've seen it like with two or three different encoding algorithms.
Well, cool. I think that about covers what we wanted to talk about today. That one got a little smoother. We're only 2 minutes over.
Only 2 minutes over. We started a minute late because I don't know what happened with going live. Yeah, so no detections for any of these today. We're just going to go over them. I think if people are more interested in lateral movement, maybe we'll work on some more just some different ways and maybe do a little series with this or something. But yeah, for today, that's all that I got.
Yep. And I will say we've got some cool ones coming up here soon. We've got a talk with some of the Thor Collective about relevant threat hunting coming up in a few weeks. We're going to be discussing some updates to our APT-33 threat with some of all the new craziness we've been seeing going on in the world, and a lot more coming on. We've got workshops, we've got live streams. If you guys like the content, please come check it out. Again, thanks for hanging out and attending today.
See you, everybody.